I stood at the edge of my childhood home, the once familiar creak of the porch now sounding like the groans of a long-buried memory. The air was thick with a tension I hadn't felt in years, a mix of nostalgia and dread. This was where it had all begun, the laughter, the derision, the endless mockery that had driven me from the warmth of family to the cold embrace of shadows. I could still hear my mother's voice, dripping with contempt, echoing in my mind. "You'll lose your mind over this ridiculous obsession. You're a disgrace to our family." But I wasn't here to reclaim their approval. No, I had returned to bear witness to a truth that they refused to see, a truth that haunted the very fabric of our existence. I had become a supernatural epidemiologist, a title that once made me the punchline of their jokes. Now it was a badge of honor, albeit one stained with the horrors I had uncovered, horrors that had marked me like a scarlet letter. I pushed open the door, and the familiar scent of aged wood and old books enveloped me. My family was gathered in the living room, their faces a collage of confusion, skepticism, and a hint of concern. They hadn't seen me in years, and I could tell they were unprepared for the changes time had wrought on both me and the world I had come to know. "Look who decided to grace us with their presence," my father said, his voice laced with feigned nonchalance. "The mad scientist returns." "Dad, please," I replied, my voice steady despite the tremor beneath. "I'm not here to argue. I need to show you something." I pulled out my notebook, pages filled with sketches of ominous relics and accounts of outbreaks tied to the supernatural plagues that crawled through the ages like shadows, infecting those who dared to ignore their existence. The room was silent as I spoke, detailing the connections between cursed artifacts and the inexplicable diseases that were ravaging towns across the globe. The more I talked, the more their faces hardened into masks of disbelief, just as they had before. "Cursed relics? Supernatural diseases?" my sister scoffed, crossing her arms. "You're still stuck in that fantasy world, aren't you?" Fantasy? I felt a scalding rush of anger, but I kept my composure. "I've documented cases." "People are suffering, dying. You think this is a joke? Then why haven't you brought one of these curses home?" my brother chimed in, a smirk plastered on his face. "Show us what you found, doctor." I took a deep breath, pulling a small, ornate box from my bag, a relic I had unearthed from a forgotten cemetery, surrounded by tales of madness and death. It was a talisman meant to ward off plague, or so the stories told. I placed it on the coffee table, the air around us growing heavier, electric with anticipation. "This is more than just an artifact," I said, my voice low and urgent. "It's a warning." They exchanged glances, skepticism giving way to an uneasy curiosity. I opened the box, revealing a twisted, blackened bone adorned with strange symbols, a remnant of an ancient plague. As the light hit it, the symbols seemed to pulse, whispering secrets that slithered into the corners of the room. "Are you serious?" My sister's voice trembled slightly now, the bravado fading. "That's just a bone." But I could feel it, the presence lurking in the shadows of our home, the weight of a history long ignored. I closed my eyes, recalling the whispers of the damned that had followed me through my research, their cries rising like a tide. "You don't understand," I said, my voice barely above a whisper. "What I've learned is that some curses never die. They linger, waiting for the moment they can strike again." Suddenly, the temperature in the room plummeted. The shadows in the corners darkened, stretching toward us like hungry tendrils. My family recoiled, their faces draining of color as the air thickened with an oppressive dread. I could see the realization dawning on them. Their disbelief was a fragile barrier, crumbling under the weight of what I had unearthed. "Do you feel that?" I whispered, the bone trembling in my hand. "This is what I've been trying to warn you about. There are forces at play that you can't comprehend." The shadows writhed and twisted, coalescing into shapes that danced just out of sight. My family gasped, their fear palpable as they witnessed the darkness I had carried with me. The laughter echoed in my mind, but now it felt different, a haunting reminder of everything I had suffered, everything I had endured to bring this truth to light. "Please, I'm begging you," I pleaded, stepping closer, the shadows cloaking me like an unholy shroud. "You must understand what you've mocked. It's not just my obsession. It's a reality that threatens us all." Then the bone shattered in my grip, splintering like a fragile truth crushed under the weight of denial. A scream erupted from my sister as the shadows surged forward, enveloping her in an icy embrace. I felt the chill crawl up my spine, but this time I stood firm. I had faced much worse, horrors that had left me forever marked, but had ultimately bestowed upon me a knowledge that now pulsed through my veins. As the darkness receded, my family was left trembling, their faces pale and stricken. They had witnessed the terrifying weight of what they had dismissed for so long. Their laughter had turned to screams, laughter swallowed by shadows. In that moment, I felt a bittersweet sense of vindication. I had survived what they could not, what they refused to even acknowledge. I turned.